Yo, what's up, everyone? This is Terry with College Football Stop. I bring you another video today. A couple things I wanted to get into here. Um, I'm excited. I can't wait for this weekend. There's some big games. The Red River Shootout, I think they call it, Red River Rivalry. Whatever. Plus, Alabama versus Texas A&M, Ohio State versus Maryland. I'm glad to see Ohio State playing again. This last 2 weeks felt like 2 months for some reason. I don't know, probably because we got used to having football only 4 weeks, and then it was gone for at least for Ohio State's sake. But I do want to get into some Ohio State things today. The players met with the media. I'm going to get into a couple things they had to say. I kind of really focused on the defensive guys. I may see what the offensive guys had to say tomorrow. I didn't really look at them too much, but I really am interested in what this defense has going on, and how those guys are feeling about how they played so far this year. Obviously, we're going to get into our daily stat dive, some hot takes, and then some key things to watch for the game. So let's go ahead and get started here. The first thing that I thought was interesting as far as like what the players had to say, Tyleik Williams said, first off, he talked about his interception. I thought that was so funny. People asked him, or his ball that he could have intercepted. People asked him like, "Hey, how'd that go?" Or have you been on the jugs machine? He's like, "Nah, but I need to." And the ball hit me right in the hands. Obviously, he made a good play on the ball, and it was a good pass breakup. But he said he wants to make sure he catches that next time. Um, and then the other thing Tyleik said that I thought was interesting is he said that a lot of teams are doubling Mike Hall this year. Obviously, the stats have not been there for Mike Hall, but we know the kind of player that he is, and I think that he's going to really come up in some big games. But Tyleik noticing that other teams are doubling him is interesting because Tyleik has kind of been getting off on people. So it makes you wonder if they started to double Tyleik, would Mike Hall start getting off on people? And then, I mean, if that's really how good those two are on the interior, that's going to be hard to deal with all year for any team they play. And then, the last thing about Tyleik, I was wondering if he was hurt after the Notre Dame game because he made the tackle on Sam Hartman and then kind of laid on the ground and rolled over. He said, "No, I wasn't hurt. I was just tired." I thought that was funny. I like that kind of like playful, whatever. I love that from Tyleik. He's probably one of my favorite players on the team for sure so far this year. And then the next player that said some interesting things was Denzel Burke. I've been really interested in what he's had to say all year, because Denzel Burke has been one of those guys that I feel like is like he's a pro now, and that's the same note that I have about Mike Hall. He didn't have too many interesting things to say, but both of those guys to me they're acting like pros. When you hear them talk, when you watch them play, when you watch the little bit of practice that you get, I think those guys are pros and they're ready to go to the NFL and make some moves. But Denzel did say that he hopes that they throw the ball his way this weekend because obviously Notre Dame only one attempt his way and it was like a little slant. The guy caught the ball and got down short of the first down. But Denzel didn't really see any action other than that. He said he hopes that they challenge him, and he said that he thinks that they will challenge him, knowing who Notre Dame is, or I'm sorry, who Maryland is, and what they like to do. Um, the other interesting thing that Denzel had to say, he uses the word dominate a lot, and I love that from him. Maybe that's a Tim Walton thing, but he's like, basically, my goal is just to dominate the guy in front of me. And so far, he's done that this year. So I don't know. I love what I hear about him. The last thing, as far as the players go, Lathan Ransom, he talked to the media. Lathan seems super confident this year in what he's doing, and he kept using the word anticipation, which I love to hear that. Last year, Jim Knowles talked about Tommy Eichenberg, about how he doesn't go where the ball is, he goes where the ball is going, and he knows kind of where the ball should go every single play. And basically, I think this year we're getting more players on the defense that have that in them, or that have that much knowledge of the scheme and whatnot to know where the ball is going to come out. I think that that's really helping, and that's kind of what Lathan talked about mostly was just like, anticipating and knowing exactly where the play is going, where I need to be, where the contact point is. And they talked to him about like if he was sore because if you watched the Notre Dame game, you saw that Lathan Ransom was popping dudes. I mean, listen, he said he was playing at a higher weight this year, and I think that ultimately was good for him, especially with the like kind of box safety role that they're asking him to play most of the time this year. All right, so that was going to be it for the just players meeting with the media. Like I said, I'll probably dig into what the offensive players had to say tomorrow. I know they met with like Marv and Chip Trainum, a couple guys like that. I didn't get a chance to take a look at those yet. And as always, guys, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let me know if you enjoy the content. The next thing I want to do, this is going to be a segment that I plan on doing every single day. Some days it's going to be a little more in depth. Some days it won't be. It just depends. But it's just my daily stat dive. Um, I'm a big stats guy, like I always say. Um, I think stats do prove some things, and then you can use stats to like kind of prove your point, even if you're wrong sometimes. But I like stats because they can tell you the big picture of things also. So basically, what my question for today was that I wanted to answer with stats, and is how much better is Ohio State's defense in 2023 than it was in 22 and 21. All right, and I went to like the very basic stats to figure this out. So basically, I got rushing yards allowed, passing yards allowed, and then total yards allowed. All right, so this is not just simply not factoring in points, but this is factoring in yards, which does make a big difference in a game. And you'll see that there is actually a huge difference and where the difference is. So, looking at the rushing yards, so in 2023, Ohio State's allowing 3.1 rushing yards per attempt, 107 yards per game. 22 was 3.5 per attempt, 121 per game. And then 2021 was 3.7 per attempt and 127 per game. Now, that's not a huge difference, right? But it is a difference. Ohio State's rushing defense is better than it was those last 2 years. And I think, like I said this on my show yesterday, I think that Ohio State has played a good mixture of teams where you could kind of simulate that over a season. And that's why I'm cool with comparing these numbers, like the first 4 games, to the entire season. I know they have some good teams coming up that could skew those numbers a little bit, but they've already played a good team, in my opinion. And I think that basically, if you look throughout the year, Ohio State's played one Big Ten team that was not great, 2 teams that were not great. So really 3 teams that were not great, and then a really good team. That's kind of how the schedules work out with the Big Ten, with all of college football. Really, you get like 3 teams that are not great, and then you play a good team. That's kind of how it works. All right, so moving on to the passing yards per game. Looking at this year, Ohio State's at 5.37 yards per attempt and 149 yards per game. That is really good. That is the biggest difference in this defense so far this year, which we kind of thought that it was going to be. I mean, you look at their secondary. The secondary has been looking good, a lot better than last year. And when you dig into last year's stats in 21, in 2022, they were 7.24 yards per attempt, 200 yards per game. And then in 21, it was 6.94 yards per attempt, 246 yards per game. So, I mean, if you're looking at that stat, that's a huge difference. From 7.24, 6.94 down to 5.37. That's the biggest difference in this defense this year, is that the passing defense is exceptional so far. And I mean, I know they played 2 teams that like to run the ball, but I mean, again, I'm not gonna. I think that what they played so far is a good mixture of what you get throughout the year, because they also play 2 teams that are really good at throwing the ball. So yeah, I think those numbers work out, but that is the biggest difference on this team is their pass defense is great. And I just looked at like the total, which this was something I thought was interesting also. So in 2023, the total yards per play that they're allowing so far is 4.1 yards per play, only 256 yards. And then looking at 2022, it was 5.2 yards per play and 322 yards per game. 2021, 5.3 yards per play, 373 yards per game. Now, I mean, again, like I was saying before, we all knew that this defense was better than it has been the last 2 years. I probably should have went back to like 2019 on here and seen what the stats were looking like, because that was Ohio State's best defense in the Ryan Day era. But I think that there is a chance that this defense could, overall as a unit, end up being better than that one. We'll see how it plays out. It just depends on what they do in these big games, because the 2019 defense was not giving up a lot of points when they played really good teams. Even in the playoffs, they lost to Clemson. I think the score was was what 23-29 or something like that. But again, they're not giving up a lot of points even to the best teams in the country. So hopefully this year that this defense can carry over and can kind of do some things to slow down teams like Penn State and Michigan. They already had their one big test, which was Notre Dame. I don't think their offense is super explosive, but don't necessarily think that Penn State's or Michigan's is either. I think that those are teams that just have a really good defense, and their offense can potentially challenge you, especially if you allow them to. So, all right, so that was it for that segment. That was my daily stat dive. I want to move on now to my hot take segment. Basically, a lot of people call them like bold predictions, whatever you want to call it. It's hot takes for me. That's how I roll. I have 5 of them, and these are going to be for basically for Ohio State players or a unit on Ohio State, kind of like things that I think could happen but are not likely to happen. But if they do, I get to take a victory lap on them. Okay, so TreVeyon Henderson, I think he's going to get loose this week, and I think that he's due for a big game. I know he had a decent game last week against Notre Dame, but I think that he's due for a huge game. I'm going to say TreVeyon Henderson goes for over 150 yards this week. Probably a couple touchdowns. We'll see how that works out. Sometimes they like to switch running backs after the one running back gets them all the way down the field. But I think he's due for a huge game. And I think that this offensive line is really just starting to mesh and get better. Against Notre Dame, they missed a few key blocks, or really what happened was they were making the right blocks, and then the guys, they were just not finishing them. So at the very end, a player would come off and would hit TreVeyon Henderson from the side as he was trying to get through the hole. If they can button that up, he's going to score it out for some big runs and go over 150 yards against Maryland. And then number 2, I think Kyle McCord is ready to have a breakout game. He's played okay so far, and I think Ohio State fans are just kind of waiting to see him like explode and start hitting some of the throws that he's missing, start throwing with anticipation. I think that could happen this week after a game like Notre Dame to boost his confidence, and then having the extra week off to prepare and to just continue working with the wide receivers as the quarterback one. I'm going to say Kyle McCord throws for 4 touchdowns in this game. That's something that he hasn't done yet, and I think that he could do it. We'll see. Again, I don't know. Maryland's defense has not been playing bad, but at the same time, Ohio State just simply has better athletes. I think they have better coaches. I think they're going to take care of business fairly easy in this game, and Kyle McCord has a big day. The next one's going to be over to the defensive side of the ball. I think that Denzel Burke will get an interception in this game. That's not a super bold take, but I mean, he didn't have one all of last year. He had one this year. But I think he's going to get one in this game. I hope he houses it. I want to see them try to challenge him, and I think that he's going to be up for the challenge no matter what they do. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Let's see here. All right, moving on to the next one. I have number 4. I think Ohio State's defense gets 5 sacks in this game. Now, Ohio State's defense has 5 sacks on the year so far. So I'm looking for them to double that in this one game. 5 sacks is not a crazy amount of sacks, especially with a quarterback like Tualia who loves to try to create. And if someone gets in the backfield, he's not just going to throw the ball away. He'll try to juke them out. He'll try to run around them and get into the open fields, so that way his guys have a chance to create downfield. And I think that he's going to try that, but I also think that Ohio State has done a really good job this year of kind of caging quarterbacks in. I think that's part of the reason why they haven't gotten as many sacks. However, I also think that they haven't really allowed quarterbacks to kill them on the ground, which if you look back at last year, Ohio State versus Michigan, everybody sees the big plays that happened, which is fine. Those big plays for touchdowns need to be addressed, and they have addressed them. But also in the third quarter of that game, J.J. McCarthy started running the ball more. And there was one drive that they sustained for, I think it was like an 8-minute drive or something that ended in a touchdown. And a lot of the plays on that drive were, or the conversions on that drive were because J.J. McCarthy was running the ball. So they need to be prepared for that, and I think that that's what the defense is doing this year. So I think they're still going to get the sacks this week, though, because Tualia is going to try to get out of there, and they're going to cage him in, and they're going to get him to the ground. All right, so then moving on to the last one, number 5 here. I have someone other than the main four pass catchers catches a touchdown. So when I say the main four pass catchers, I'm talking Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka, Julian Fleming, and I'm going to put Cade Stover in there because even though he hasn't had a touchdown, they've been throwing to him a lot. I think he's the second or third, probably third leading receiver on this team right now. Yeah, he's behind Marvin Emeka. He's way ahead of Julian Fleming. Now, by saying someone other than those four guys, that does leave the option of like Carnell Tate, who has already caught a touchdown pass. So whatever, if I get it off of that, it's a technicality. I don't care. However, Carnell Tate didn't play a single snap against Notre Dame, so I mean that's still, predicting him to have a touchdown would be fairly bold or kind of a hot take. I'm hoping that somebody else gets a chance though. I want to see maybe Jaden Ballard, maybe Brandon Ennis. Xavier Johnson doesn't have a touchdown yet this year. Maybe him. I want to see some of those guys get out there and get some snaps, especially in a game like this where it's going to help build their confidence because Maryland's defense is probably not going to be able to stop Ohio State that much. And if you got your guys out there in a game like this, a game where the other team may be able to score a little bit, it still feels like a game. It's not just like a blowout. And then also, they should not be getting like making you lose because they're playing against players that are just way better than them. So I don't know. Hopefully, we'll see that happen. I would love to see Brandon Ennis get his first catch as a Buckeye. Had high hopes for him, but he didn't come in early in the spring or whatever. He came in the summer, so he hasn't had a ton of opportunities to get playing time like Carnell Tate has. But I want to see him out there. The boy looks like a baller. I think if he catches a ball, he can make some moves with it. He seems pretty quick and shifty. All right, so moving on to the last subject for today. Not a long show, but I do want to go over this before I get out of here. Basically, what do I think are my keys to watch for? So, when you're watching this game, what are the things that you should be focused on? That's one thing that I never used to do in the past. I would just look at the results. But recently, since I've started learning more about football, started doing more content, so I need to know a little bit more. I focus on key things while the game is on. So the first thing that I think that you should focus on is going to be Ohio State's secondary against Maryland's receivers. There's no way to spin it other than Maryland's receivers are the best receivers that Ohio State has played this year, and they're going to be put to the test. I mean, those guys have speed. Those are athletes that potentially could play at Ohio State. Maybe not every single one of them, but Maryland always has guys who are shifty, who are speedy, and who are good route runners, and they have good hands. So it's going to be a big challenge for them. Davis Igbinosun is probably going to be the target early in this game. I expect him to be, and then if Jordan Hancock is on the field, he'll probably be the target also. But I don't think that they're going to completely shy away from Denzel Burke like how Notre Dame did. So I'm watching those guys from the very beginning of the game. I'm watching them. I want to see them go out there and dominate players that they should be able to dominate. Even though they're really good players, if this secondary is as good as I think it is, they should be able to take care of these guys and kind of neutralize that pass game for Notre Dame or for Maryland, excuse me. All right, and then moving on to the next key thing, Ohio State's defensive line. So everyone has been talking about this defensive line, about how they're not getting sacks, and I've been kind of defending them through and through, saying that they are getting pressures and they're doing what they're supposed to do. I've been watching a lot of like film and stuff just to see exactly what everybody's doing on the play, and I think the defensive line is doing what they're supposed to do. I think that they're not asking them to just get out there like, hey, get after the quarterback, and if he springs out, then we got someone else there to clean him up. I think they're using those defensive linemen to stop the quarterback from running the ball, which ultimately it is going to impact their numbers some. But if you watch them, man, they're wrecking plays. They're doing, especially the defensive ends. Like the interior is probably one of the best in the country, but people are hating on the defensive ends. And if you watch them, there's multiple plays in the run game where JT Tuimoloau will wreck the play by himself. I saw one against Maryland where Maryland they kind of did like a pin and pull where they had guys blocking down and then guys pulling around the edge. And two guys pulled around, met JT Tuimoloau, and he split both of them, so took both of them out of the play and still made the tackle on the running back. I mean, those are just things that you can't, you can teach it, but those are things that not everybody's going to be able to do. And JTT is a special player. I think he's going to end up being a first rounder. I'm sticking to that. I still think that to this day. All right, and then offensively, the key things to watch for Ohio State. I would say the connection that Kyle McCord has with the wide receivers. A lot of times this year, I've seen receivers getting open and Kyle just not throwing the ball. I think that will come with time. I think that will come with confidence, and nothing's going to boost your confidence like what he did in the end of that Notre Dame game. I think that he needs to come out with his chest poked out, his chin up, and just be like, "I'm the best quarterback on this field, regardless of who we're playing," and let that ball rip because your wide receivers are going to be there for you. They're going to cover you if it's a bad throw. They're going to do everything that they can to help you. They're going to try to get separation. So I want to see him let the ball loose and not be afraid to throw it as the guys come out of their break and with a little bit of anticipation because I've seen him do it against Notre Dame on the last drive. Anytime that Kyle McCord is in a, situation where it's like a 2 minute drill, that anytime I've seen him in that situation this year, he's looked like a completely different player. And I think that's just because he's just had to let it rip. He didn't have a choice. And when he does that, he looks like a completely different player than he does throughout the game. He's kind of more like managing the game. But even if you go back to the very first game of the year, Ohio State was driving on like a 2 minute drill at the end of the half, and that was the play where Kyle threw a dot to Carnell Tate on the corner, right on like the 3 yard line. Carnell Tate ended up dropping it and kind of getting hit pretty hard. But in that drive, Kyle McCord was dealing. And then I think every game so far this year, we've had like a 2 minute drill where Kyle has just looked phenomenal. So I hope to see more of that from him. Maybe they need to speed things up and let him get into a rhythm. But I think that that's what you need to watch for. Kyle McCord is going to end up being one of the best quarterbacks in college football. I think we'll see how it plays out because statistically he's not right now, and watching the film he's not either. But he just simply has to get better. But who else would you rather have to make your quarterback better than Ryan Day? I'll leave it at that. All right, so we have another show tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'm going to be kind of digging deep into this Notre Dame team and how Ohio State matches up with them, how they match up with Ohio State, and then some other games around college football. Like I said, we got Alabama, Texas A&M, and then Oklahoma, Texas, the Red River Shootout. So we'll take a look into all those games tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Hit the like button, subscribe button. Come back for more content. You have a good day.